Have you ever looked into all the holes in your car? The places that very few dare to go. Yeah, me either. Exploring all these nooks and crannies is a necessity. It's about safety, longevity, and for you to save some money. Whether you're buying a car or you're just inspecting your own car, one of the things that you can inspect is the brakes. And this is very convenient to do, so you don't have to take out the wheel every time you want to inspect them. And on top of that, a lot of cars have rims that you can't really see through. First, let's check the brake disc. And as you can see, that looks pretty good. Has normal wear and tear. Now we can go into the brake caliper, and we want to see the thickness of the brake caliper. And as you can see, that has some pretty good thickness. And check the underneath as well. And this view really shows you on how thick that pad is. And looking at the brake pad, you don't want it to be 1/3 that size. That's way too thin, and at that point, you need to change them out. So my brake pads are good. And as well, if you see deep scratch marks on your disc, then it's time to replace those discs and reevaluate your brake calipers. When you're buying a new car or you just haven't checked underneath the car for a long time, the suspension tends to be overlooked easily. Grab the Boroscope. We can look one behind the wheel, see all this good stuff, that's the caliper. But I wanna see the shock. The shock would be in line with this tire right behind it. You see the shock right there. You can inspect all the mounting points. That bushing looks pretty decent. It looks decent, but might not be decent, but just by visuals, it looks pretty good. That's not the point you wanna check on the shock. You wanna check right there. And as you can see, that shock is wet at the seam. And that's not something you can easily see unless you're jacking up your car. If the car is even lower, you can't crawl underneath it like you can my Tahoe. So I know I need to replace that shock because it is indeed leaking hydraulic fluid at the seam. Whew. This Mercedes has a lot of rust. We know we have rust on the side panels. And there's a hole right here, so I want to see how deep and how intrusive that rust is going in. And checking for rust is definitely something you should do when you're buying a new car. And as you can see, it's not really easy to crawl underneath this car to check for that rust. So let's first go through this hole and see what's inside here. All right, so this is what it looks like. So let's first go left. I'm actually pleasantly surprised. That doesn't look too bad. That's a bit of rust, but that's not bad at all. And on top is just a whole bunch of dirt. Huh, that's a mounting spot, that red thing. Okay, that's not bad at all, cool. But now, let's go to the right. I did not expect all those wires. Okay, so we have rust at that seam. You can see the factory rust protecting layer, that oil. Oil does a fantastic job. However, this is the bottom. So the top looks good, bottom definitely looks a bit rust. Right there actually doesn't look too bad. Right there, that's a lot of rust. Then of course you can go underneath the car and inspect the chassis from down below. That mount is a tiny bit rusty, but not too bad. You can get deep in there, and there you go. So that's an easy way to inspect your rust on your car. But you can also inspect an oil leak. And as you can see, this van has an oil leak. So I know the oil leak is coming from right over here. So let's go ahead and look underneath this brake master cylinder where it connects to the Hydro Boost. And that is exactly where I expected the leak to be coming from. So now I guess it's time for me to replace the Hydro Boost. And of course, we can do some engine bay inspection. But instead of looking for an oil leak, we can dip into all the little nooks and crannies and look for any wetness. That is the water pump right there, so we can look through all the different spots. That looks good, good, that looks good. Yep. We can go underneath this electrical box and see if there's a rat's nest in there. And now to do the most typical use of an endoscope with the car and look down the cylinder walls. Spark plug meets spark plug wire. So go ahead and pull this out. Okay, let's go ahead and go into that hole there. There you go. And it definitely looks like there's a lot of carbon deposits in there. The cylinder walls, that looks like a tiny score, to be honest. This thing's actually really awesome. The head rotates 360 degrees, which is pretty freaking cool. The head is that big, so it can fit into just about anything. It's pretty good quality and it has an IP rating of 67, which is pretty freaking good, which means it's waterproof. This is one great way to easily inspect your car or a car you're potentially about to buy to avoid costly repairs. If you want to check this out, I have a link down below. That's one great way to support this channel. And that's all for today. This is Chris. Always appreciate and respect one another. I'll see you next time. And that's all. This is Chris. Always appreciate and respect one another. I'll see you next time.